something that I say along the way will touch you. I know it. Let's begin that process of crafting a meaningful life.
Here's Mary Crafts.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. That's what we're here for. It's that you and I get to craft our lives together. I'm still crafting mine. Can I just say that I feel sometimes like I'm so far behind. I didn't really start crafting my life until I was age 50. So in reality, I'm almost 19. And at 19, you don't really have your stuff together. So that's okay, right? We're just going to work through this and continue to work until the very end. And then we probably get another chance at it again. And I love that part about life is that perspective that what was back there is with us now. And what we have now is going with us there. And that's why I don't want to stop learning ever. I want to take with me as much as I can. I want to leave as much impact here as I can. I'm Mary Crafts, and with me today, I have one of my dearest, dearest friends, Kandace Dato. Kandace, welcome, welcome.
Thank you, Mary. I'm so happy to be here. Very pleased. And, you said you're only 19 or maybe 19. I think I'm 2 because I actually changed my entire life at the age of 50 as well.
You did.
So,
I remember sitting on that sofa. Kandace is one of my dearest friends, and you've heard me refer many times to that close women circle that I have with 8 women in it that we meet every week. And I remember sitting on the sofa next to you, Kandace. You were on the edge of the sofa and I was in the chair next to you. And you were like ready to jump, but just on the precipice. Your little toes were hanging off. And you're like, woo!
yeah.
And all of us just were there to like lift you and support you and say like, jump, 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 jump.
Yeah. And jump I did.
And you did.
Yeah.
So let's start with a little bit of that. Let's start with, what's your background, where you came from, and what you're doing today.
Great. So my background and where I came from has nothing to do with where I am today. That's the irony of the whole thing.
Me too.
I spent about 23 years in technology, IT, telecommunications. That's where, most of my career was spent both in corporate America and as an independent agent on my own. I had a couple of other small companies in marketing and even the PEO payroll space, which is interesting.
Wow.
So all business, all mostly left brain business. And then right around 50, I had some things kind of happen in my career that I had to, face that were pretty hard. And through that and through my seeking, what should I do? How can I fix this? Should I be fixing this? I met with some advisors that I like to use in my space and basically was told, no, you don't get to keep doing what you were doing in the past. You are meant to be a coach and a healer, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. And luckily, I believed that in my soul. And I said, that is what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm supposed to do with the next however many years I'm granted on this earth to heal and help other people and more specifically women.
Yeah. I've often wondered, Kandace, if there's this thing wired into our DNA that happens at age 50, because it is so universal that almost everyone goes through that midlife crisis. Some people a little earlier, some people a little later, most people a little earlier than 50, to be honest, in their 40s. But it's like wired into us that all of a sudden we went, wait, stop. Is this what I want to do? Is this who I am? Is this the authentic piece of me? And maybe in our DNA knows we need a lot, maybe half of our life to figure out what doesn't work.
Well, it's true. And Mary, if you believe or have any tendency towards astrology, it actually is in our charts. At around the age of 50, we have our Chiron return. And that's why it's called a midlife crisis. So absolutely, it's in the stars.
Okay, so I didn't just make that up. I love it when I'm right.
Yeah. You are right.
And, I remember, Kandace, when we first started putting our friendship together, and I would invite you to a few things. We would cross paths at some event. And one time you showed up at an event where I had just put out an invitation to some people where I was being honored. And you drove all the way from Park City down to Utah County. Like, for those of you who don't know, that's like crossing into the Neverland, from the Celestial Kingdom down to the Neverland. And you showed up.
Yeah.
And I remember looking over the table and thinking, I'm so honored to have Kandace here. What a gift she's given me. And I really at that point did not know what we were going to mean to each other and the community that we were going to create, our tribe, our circle, that would support each of us in the rest of our life, in our journeys.
Yeah.
It's been a real gift to have you in my life.
I feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Well, so Kandace, as you're doing now this whole new career in life coaching and helping people doing your workshops and those kinds of things. In fact, if people want to follow you, we're going to include the link to your Instagram as well as your website, which is just CandaceDato.com, so that they can follow up and see what you're doing. As you're doing this, are these things that people have to be live with you? I mean, do they have to travel to Utah, or is it a remote situation? What are you doing in that space?
Well, it's both live in person and remote. So
Ah,
I have clients all over from New York to Florida to California. So that's been one of the blessings, I think, of the COVID thing is that doing things remotely or
ah,
doing things by video became very normalized for people that weren't
yeah,
used to the technology or kind of being in that video space. So now it's just second nature.
yeah. It really is.
Yeah.
In the first probably, I don't know, 200 episodes of my podcast, I never did a remote. I always, if I had a guest, I had them live,
Wow.
unless they were for someplace around the country. But now I do everything remotely and
Yeah.
I still get to connect and have this great thing. I
Yeah.
love that piece.
Me too.
Um, so today, as I talked to you about coming onto my podcast, I did talk to you about something very specific, though,
Yeah.
because several months ago, I put out on my Facebook, or actually on all my social media platforms, 4 different ideas for topics, and I wanted to kind of get an I feel for what people were interested in hearing about, and if they had any other ones, to please put them down, and they did. They did put them down.
Wow.
They wanted to know about how to heal and thrive after divorce. They wanted to know about what was my personal spiritual journey. They wanted to know about how to become resilient because I look and seem like, after all I've gone through it, I'm pretty resilient at this point. And one of the things that was on there, one of the questions is, would you like to know and understand what from your past is still affecting you in your future and
Yeah.
right now? And would you like to know when something pops up in your life and you say, what is that emotion? I haven't felt that forever. Why is it still with you when you think you've healed it? And people were like,
Yeah.
yes, 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 number 4, we want number 4. So I thought that probably the best way to talk about this, Candace, was in the realm of talking about what's become that catchphrase and the well-known book of the emotion code. I
Yeah.
remember in this space, probably, I bet you 30 years ago, I read a book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
Yeah.
And I was so affected by that book that when we have feelings in our lives that aren't resolved, that we just keep stuffing them and stuffing them and stuffing them, and they
Mhm.
get down there deep in our gut, but then they don't die.
No.
They just continue. And so this emotion code now has become such a big thing. And I think it kind of deals with the same thing, right?
It does. Because everything, I tell people who are new to that space and don't understand how emotions or words or experiences become energy and get trapped inside of us. It's almost like if you dial a customer service call and you have to press 1 for customer service. Well, how does that network
Hmm.
know that you've pressed 1? Well, 1 has a unique tone. So every time you press one, the network knows a one was pressed and I'm supposed to send one to this place. It's kind of like that with emotions or words. Every word, every emotion has a signature, has a unique energy about it. And where that gets stored and trapped is actually in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind takes everything personal and it never forgets. So it's stored in there as trapped energy, which is crazy. Um, how I kind of got into the emotion code, a quick story was I had a friend do a session on me. I didn't even actually know that's what I was going to be doing. And it was so interesting because if someone said, where does your trapped emotions or inherited emotions come from? And we'll talk about that in just a minute. I would have thought for sure they would come from my mom. And in
Right.
fact, through the session, they didn't. They all came through my dad and they all touched on something that was very deep in me that I knew. They said, oh my gosh, that's where that comes from. That's where it sits. But the best part about that is I think you were at my house for this event.
Right.
And I said, no, I haven't done my hair. I haven't done my makeup. I'm not wearing new clothes. And
It's
I
an
said, I don't know.
energy
Yeah,
that was
you all,
just
yeah,
coming out of you
yeah.
and
And it's
drawing us
because,
in. Yeah.
yes, because I released so much trapped energy that this new light and beautiful energy could shine through. It was amazing. And I was so touched by that. I knew that I had to get certified in this and give that gift to other people.
And I'm so glad you did. And I know that others are glad that you have done that because you're sharing that gift with them. But most of all,
Right.
you are glad you've done that. Tell me about
Absolutely.
the difference in the feeling from before to now. If you can describe the feelings.
Yes. So the feeling is light and it's free because, like you said, sometimes we have these things and we're like, where did that emotion come from? Why am I feeling that? Where is that? Why am I reacting to a situation in this way? And often it comes from those trapped emotions because if you don't release them, they're always there and they're going to rear their ugly head at the worst possible time. And it's actually being able to sit in a space now when something happens and being able to be aware of it and be able to be calm about it and then have an appropriate emotional response to events or situations or people and not this that comes out of you. So it's this feeling of calm and peace.
And how quick can you make that change from feeling that fight or flight kind of feeling
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
how quick can you make that shift?
um, I can make it pretty fast now, where in the past, I was not able to make the shift at all. I would
Ah,
stay in that space, right? So it's a way of, in fact, right now, if I have any, we let me back up. We think of trauma as these big, huge events. We think of trauma as, you know, really bad accidents, illness, a major divorce. But in fact, a
sexual
trauma,
abuse,
yes,
being beat as a child, made to sit in a closet,
right.
but it's not that.
It's not. Traumatic event can be a simple argument or disagreement. It can be just getting cut off in traffic and having that immediate, like, all of those are little mini traumas that get stored in our body as trapped emotions.
Yeah.
So if I have something that happens to me even now, I quickly go into a space and I'll do an emotion code session on myself because I'm like, oh, I don't want to keep that. I do not want to carry that with me and I don't want that in my body. So I'll do sessions on myself.
Okay, so I'm going to be really vulnerable and very emotionally naked, uh, because I think people who listen to my podcast, they know that I'm not worried about them thinking I'm perfect because they know
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah.
But they also know that I'm in the process and that I'm constantly looking and wanting to take the next forward and deal with what I don't want to be stuffing anymore. I don't want to be a
Right.
stuffed animal. You got to stuff the animal and sew it up and keep it in there. I don't want to do that. But
No.
I had a situation happen to me about a week and a half ago. Well, actually, just about a week ago. maybe we could go today. And I was out dancing with John, and John is like my Prince Charming times 10.
Yeah.
He's one, and you've seen this because
Oh
you've
yeah.
traveled with us, that he's 100% focused on me.
Yep. Give, give, give.
And he's never ever given me any reason to think that he was the wandering eyes guy or that he was texting someone else, never, nothing. And last Saturday night we were out dancing, and we were just having the best time and the best connection and reminiscing and talking about things in the future. It was just a great night. And we were sitting at our table, not dancing at that moment. And at the table next to us were three guys. And then the space heading to the dance floor was open. And then just beyond them was the bar. So we're sitting there, blah, blah, blah. And this woman, well, I would call her a girl, in her 20s, came over in front of the table next to us and just started her grunting and grinding and getting it on. And her little shorty, bra was just on. And I'm just like, oh, please. But then she just kept on, and I began to make up in my head that John was watching her. And for the first time, John said, because this, how in bars they always have those little people walking around with the little colored test tubes.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm like, I've never had one of those. I want to try one of those. And so he's like looking around for that waitress that has those. He's looking around, and I'm thinking all of a sudden, he's not looking around. He's looking at that woman. So I lean forward to look at where his eyes are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like literally looking, but I'm making up in my head that he's looking at this girl.
Yeah.
And the longer that he was looking for those test tubes, the more I'm like, just getting angrier and angrier. And I'm like, what the heck? You can't be looking at that 20-year-old and think that's what you got here in this 69-year-old. What the heck? Stop that. Stop that. And so finally I just said, I want to go. And he just looked at me and said, why? I just want to go.
Yeah.
And he said, okay. So then he has to pay his bill. So he's looking around for a different waitress and looking over there. And I'm like, what the heck? And I just thought, that's it. And I got up and I said, I'm going out to the dance floor. In all the times John and I have gone dancing, I've never walked down the floor by myself.
Oh no.
So he's like, oh, I'm supposed to follow. And so he gets up and prances out to the dance floor. And we're dancing, and afterwards he just went to hug me, and I went. And he said, what? So don't play that game with me. Yeah. And I went over, got my stuff, and he was paid, and so he walked right out behind me. And I'm giving him the silent treatment. And he said, what is it? And I said, I saw you watching that girl. You don't think that's so disrespectful to me? I felt, and he just backed up and said, what? I said, I saw you. He goes, I have never given you a reason to ever feel that. I am all about you, 100% you. Why are you making this story up? And I just stopped. By that time, the damage was done.
Yeah.
And I was able to stop for just a minute and think, well, why am I making this story up? And then I began to really think about that. And he goes, I've never seen you be jealous. I've never seen you doubt who you were and who you are to me. Was I doing it again? Was I displaying again that feeling that I wasn't enough?
Yeah.
And so he had to look at someone else? Doubting myself had nothing to do with John, nothing to do with the girl who was even though I wanted to make it all about her and I wanted to make it all about John, it was about me.
Yep.
And that quick, I was able to switch back. It took me about 5 minutes. But Kandace, the damage that was done in 5 minutes was huge.
Huge.
It took John a long time. He said, is this something that's going to be part of you again? I said, I don't know. I'd love to say I hope not, but if I don't do something about it and continue to work, I'm not naive enough to say No, that's never going to happen
Yeah.
again. So, how do I short circuit that process? How does the emotion code help me with that?
Well, the first thing the emotion code will help you with is when we tap into your subconscious mind. And maybe we should back up and tell the listeners and viewers really quickly about the emotion code process. How does that work and what do we do?
Yes,
So,
please.
we do that via muscle testing, which is a form of kinesiology. And basically, I connect with your subconscious mind. And we ask permission first. Do you give your subconscious mind permission to work with me? And will we allow it to process quickly, easily, and efficiently? And will I be able to manifest that in the conscious mind? So we connect and we do muscle testing, and we go in and we ask your subconscious mind, are there any emotions, beliefs that no longer serve that we need to let go of? And then we have this chart of emotions that we go through, and it's really, I just muscle test and the chart tells me which emotion it is. I just keep going through the chart till we find it. The other thing that we do during that process is we ask if that emotion is inherited. So sometimes this feeling maybe that you have
Ah,
a value and self-worth that you're doubting and questioning, that could go back generations. And so we go back.
my listeners know
Yeah,
that about
yeah,
me. They've heard me talk about healing those generational things, and how
absolutely.
I wasn't even aware of my grandmother had that. Not only I thought I knew my mom did, but I didn't know my grandmother did. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, you
generational.
go back generational. Sometimes it can be in the womb. So if you are, your mother has a particularly difficult pregnancy, or there's turmoil or conflict or fighting or yelling around her when she's pregnant, you can inherit and absorb those trapped emotions from your mother in the womb. You can even absorb emotions that don't belong to you through being part of or witnessing a traumatic event or argument or something. So we can have emotions that aren't ours that we absorb. So we release those. The other thing that we work with is the heart wall. So all these feelings that you have, divorces, breakups, anything that makes us feel vulnerable or less than, we just keep building up this wall around our heart. We build it up and we build it up and we build it up. And we do that without even consciously being aware of it, but it's a protection. So think about when you have an emotion, it starts in your heart first. You know, when you get the flutter because you first met someone and you're so excited and you have that first, like, just, oh, I want to just meet that person. He's so attractive. Or that,
I
yeah,
still
I do
have
too,
that.
and I love it. Or the pain of a breakup or a pain of a thing. You feel
Yeah.
it in the heart first, and then you have a physical manifestation of it. So the heart is really important to clear that energy around it so that you can give and receive love in a more authentic and whole way. We just don't even know that we've done this over time or that we've been given this inherited emotion. So through that process, we would look at, where is that coming from for you? How can we release that? And where is that value and self-worth doubt coming from? It could be generations ago. It could be three
Yeah.
divorces ago. You know, it could be whatever, but we have to release that. And it's not going to say that that won't ever come back. But if you go through this event with John, maybe we need to do some release work, both for you and John, to release that event so that you
Yeah.
don't carry it with you.
Because he's definitely still
Yeah,
carrying it. I talked to him last night about doing this podcast with you, and that I felt like I needed to do some emotion
yeah,
code work. And I could see his whole facial expressions changed. He goes, I've tried to put that out of my mind. But when he said it, I was like, I know you're
yeah,
trying, baby, but you
yeah,
haven't. It's still with him. How traumatic that was to think that I was accusing him of something that wasn't
yeah,
his, and I was going in this place. He said, I've never seen you
yeah.
there.
And that was hurtful,
Yeah.
I'm sure, for him because his integrity was challenged. And that's
Yeah.
hard. And that's a mini trauma for him as well. Like, wait, what? You you think
Yeah.
me? So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But the beauty of this gift and the emotion code is you can do it as often as you need. Like I said, if I get into those little, and we've had those little arguments or things that, like, oh wow, where did that come from? Like I said, I immediately do release work because I know the power of not keeping that in my body and trapping it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about this is I felt like, and I feel like, that I have released a
Yeah.
lot, but obviously not all, and there's some still there. So it doesn't matter really what processes you've used in the past, what healing modalities. This is just adding
Yes.
on. And why wouldn't we take advantage of new learning and experiences that are coming? And of course, we're learning new ways to release this kind of stuff because the planet, believe it or not, even though it doesn't look like this, the planet is healing.
Yes.
The planet is becoming one. And those who are not involved in that find themselves off here in the
Mm-hmm.
peripheries because they don't understand it's time for the planet to heal. And for the planet to heal, and
Yeah.
we individually have
Yeah.
to heal. You know, I have that mission of
Yeah.
oneness. And I was speaking to a group of women yesterday morning, and they said, well, how do we go about creating this oneness with our globe and our planet? I said, oh, it doesn't start out there. It
Here.
starts here. And we first have to do it right here.
Absolutely.
And then it becomes more obvious how we do it with the next person in our
Yeah.
circle and the next
Yeah.
person. But it starts here. And yeah,
Yeah. It's part of this.
I'm
Yeah.
ready to sign up,
This
Candace.
expanded consciousness that your oneness, I feel like it's going to go through a major shift in the next
Yeah.
couple of years, because people are starting to do the work, and the work starts here, like you said. And when we do the work for ourselves, we get to show up better for ourselves and better for others. But you're right, it starts here.
So, is this something that people can just buy the book, The Emotion Code? I bought it. I
Me
have
too.
it. I've read about
Yeah.
half of it. Um, and is that the answer, or do you feel like you need someone trained in the skill of this?
Yeah.
How do people go about this journey?
I had also bought the book long before I did my first session. So I think being aware of it and how it works is a good idea because it allows you to be open to the process. But I really believe that you
Hmm.
need a practitioner that's trained and gone through the training and the certification, to do that work on you and with you.
Yeah, I think that's a key piece, Candace, because everyone thinks once they read the book that they're an
Yeah.
expert. And then
No,
it's always the
it's
case.
not the
Okay.
case.
But you have gone through
Yeah.
that training. You have your
Yes.
certification. And those things, because, okay, here's my secret. Not my secret, but it's the secret of the group I talked to yesterday. As we went around the room and I asked everyone their name and one sentence about them. I didn't say what you did or anything. I just said one sentence about you,
Yeah.
who you are. And almost every woman in that space said, well, I'm a life coach. And it's like, so, I mean, I'm trying to, maybe coach myself
Right.
still and share what I'm learning with others at my age. But so many people think themselves life coaches. And I look across the room and I'm like, are you 23? Are you 25? It's not the
Yeah.
age, but it's the experience base. Have you had the experience base to grow through? And then have you done the work? Have you gotten the certifications, or you just all of a sudden saw a bunch of things on Instagram and said, oh, I can do that?
Mary, it's very interesting. So, one of the things about me is that there's probably nothing that any of your listeners, viewers, followers could have experienced in this lifetime that I have not experienced. I have been through two
Mm,
divorces myself. I have been a single mom. I have been on welfare. I have been successful. I have the gamut. I have run it. But I do think that the responsibility of a life coach and a healer is someone that has to go through that certification process, because
mm,
there is a code, there is a guidebook, there is a process, and you're taking someone's life, their emotions, their world in your hands and helping to guide them through that and become better on the other side. And, I've spent the last few years and continually in training mode. I leave in a couple of weeks. I'm in an
mm.
8-day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day training coming up in July. So I take
Right.
this seriously, and I take the responsibility of helping guide someone through their life, their traumas, their feelings, their emotions. I take that very personally, and there's a huge responsibility in that.
I would think so, because it's one thing. I don't put myself out
Yeah,
as that. I just say, this is my journey and this is
yeah,
what I've learned.
yeah.
Maybe
Come
it
along
helps
with
you.
me.
Uh, Give me us. We're working
Yeah,
on this
yeah,
together. Obviously, I'm going through these crazy jealous situations that I would have done in high school.
yeah. Exactly.
But what a responsibility to say, I think I can help
Yeah,
guide you. And I have the skill set to show you some new things that perhaps you haven't
yeah,
seen before. And then you take on this responsibility of
yeah,
doing that. And you have to be accountable for your words. Like you can't just draw out all these emotions for people and make them remember all these traumas and then say,
yeah.
and good luck with that. You know?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
I had,
responsibility. Yeah,
yeah. I had someone one time talk to me about my heart wall, so I was familiar with that when I read it in the book. And they asked me, "What is your heart wall
yeah,
made of?" And I didn't really hesitate long. I just pretty much I said, "Juju
oh,
coins." And they said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, you know that candy that they can make it into any shape or color, but usually
yeah,
it's red." And it's soft and chewy, and you just can chew one up and then it just goes away in your mouth, and they make hearts out of it at
yeah,
Valentine's
yeah.
Day, and all sorts of different things. And she laughed right out loud, and she said, that's because that's soft and pliable and you can easily get through it. You have all these things around your heart, Mary, but you don't want to. You want to be able to get through that, to find the truth
Yeah,
underneath and not be affected by all these
yeah.
things. And I've loved that. As I've been unwinding my juju coins out of my heart, I've been thinking about, just really, come on, baby, you guys are so pliable. Just come on out. And I still have some heart walls
Oh
things
yeah.
in there, obviously, but it's a process that we
It
go
is.
through.
The heart wall is something that often is not cleared in one session. It takes multiple sessions.
Yeah,
Sometimes I need to know when I ask the subconscious mind, do I need to know how thick it is? And it'll tell me yes or no. And if I need to know, we go through the process till we find the how thick or how how far the energy goes out of that heart wall. And then
right.
sometimes I ask, do I need to know what it's made of? And sometimes it tells me, yes, you need to know what it's made of. And sometimes, no, I don't need to know what it's made of. And, we go through weird things. Like, I just start asking, like, wood, metal, flowers, candy. Yeah, you just start
Granite.
asking until you get the yes answer. So it's fun to do that. But I would
Yeah,
say in all the sessions I've done to need to know what it's made of, I get that about 20% of the time or 30% of the time. But sometimes you have to know. It's crazy.
yeah. It was good for
Yeah.
me to know that it wasn't made of
Yeah.
stone, that there's desire to come out and to be approachable and soft, and not to be
Yeah.
afraid of it. It was an important piece for me to know, and I was so glad she
I
shared
love
that
that.
with me. And one of the things as you work through people's heart walls that you can actually go back and through this testing, muscle testing, because our cells remember
Yeah.
everything. They do not forget. And I think the cells in your bodies turn over completely. Is it every
7
26
years.
years or
If every
7 years?
7 years,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you for.
you can
Yeah.
regenerate every cell in your body, you're a whole new person. You can change.
So how is it then if every cell in our body is replaced where that energy was stored in 7 years, that I'm still being affected by something that happened to me when I was
Well,
3?
it stores in your subconscious mind. So your subconscious mind
Oh,
doesn't
okay.
regenerate over 7 years, right?
Right, right.
Like they say, and I don't know the
Okay, I like
specific
that.
scientific numbers, but they say your conscious mind can grab about, I don't know, 40,000 bits of information in a day, where your yeah,
In
well,
a
where your
day.
subconscious mind is like millions. of bits of all this information that's happening. So it's really interesting. They call your subconscious mind your goal getter. It's where you get the energy, the will to do, but your conscious mind is just the goal setter. So your mind sets the goal, but your inside, your heart, it's where your beliefs are stored. It's where your feelings about yourself are stored. Your limiting beliefs, all in the subconscious mind.
And the thing about the subconscious mind is that it doesn't know the difference between truth and the
Right.
lie. It takes everything that it receives
Yeah,
as a
personal.
fact. And so if you've been told that you are not enough or you are worthless or you are this, it's your frontal
Yeah,
lobe, your
yeah,
cerebral that doesn't really develop until much later in life that can discern truth
yeah.
from fiction. So all this time, this subconscious mind is directing your life out of stuff that's not
Oh
even
yeah,
true. Is it true that I'm not enough? Is it true that I'll never be healed? Is it true? All those
yeah.
beliefs
They
are
are false.
false. And yet they've been affecting me all my
Yeah,
life. Yeah. I love this
me too.
emotion code thing, and I think that my guests can really benefit first, from maybe just reading the book or researching more
Yeah,
about it. As I was researching to get ready to do this podcast today, I went on Spotify and just entered in emotion code to see what came up. Oh my gosh, talk about the onslaught. And a lot of it was by Bradley Nelson, who is the author of this emotion code
yeah.
book. But then there was just like page after page after page of stuff from people who had read the book and then using the book or that kind of thing. So the one thing I want to caution my listeners is to choose wisely, Grasshopper. And those of you that aren't old enough to know that reference, okay, that's all right. But it means you have to think about your
Right.
steps through this. Don't just go with that quick gut feeling out of
Yeah.
fear that says, oh, I got to try that. And you read the book and then you do something over here and like, dang, I'm healed. Or you might say, well, that was worthless because you really weren't doing it correctly. So I want you to choose wisely how you walk through
Yeah.
this. And I appreciate the gifts that you bring, Kandace, to offer to people to walk through this with them and to help truly heal, not just read a book and put it on the shelf and say, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I read that, but to truly heal.
Absolutely. And a couple of things for them to realize too is the greatest part about the emotion code is you don't have to relive that event or relive any trauma. You don't even have to really talk about where that came from. It's going to do the work anyway.
Ah,
So that's great. And then even part of it, it's interesting when we sometimes need to know more about that. So we ask and we have to find out what age it occurred. I think that's the biggest thing that people are surprised about is I don't know the ages. I just say, okay, this happened
yeah,
when you were 4. This happened when you were 2. This happened when you were 16. They take those results and they go back and they sit and think, and they go, oh my gosh, yeah, at 16, I had this huge breakup. I didn't even know that that was still in me. So that's kind of a big piece about that is you get to kind of reflect on. And the other great part is we can do this in person. We can do it through a video call. We can do it on the phone. I can just do it remotely without you being present. I can, because everything is energy. I can tap into your energy from anywhere at any time as long as you give me
yeah.
permission. So that's great too, is you don't have to be with me. And if you're out of state or somewhere else, or you just don't feel like you want to drive to my office, we can still go through this process and heal.
And I accept your
I
invitation.
love that.
I'm ready to be emotionally healed. And I know that as you well know, Candace, I'm living to 105 with an
I
option to
love it.
renew. And probably even at that age there will be things that I'm like, and I remember
Yeah.
this. Those moments where we have glimpses of our life, but it doesn't keep me from moving
Yeah.
forward and touching every piece because I want to bring and offer to John and to myself a healed person that's able to process through these things
Yeah.
lightning fast. Not that I don't still feel them, but I can recognize them and
Yeah.
process this and realize that has nothing to do with
Yeah.
anyone but me. And to hold up the mirror and to take a look. I also love the fact about this that you can do this remotely, and I love the fact that I don't have to go back and
Yeah.
relive. So many of old-fashioned psychiatric kind of approaches took that approach is that you must remember this, and you must relive it, and you in order to heal it.
No,
That's
that's
pretty
big.
big. And you
You
don't
don't.
have to do that. It's a much softer, gentler way. I believe it's the way that the universe of love would want us to be
Absolutely.
healed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know,
I always said there are many ways to learn lessons in life. You can learn them by a pinprick, just like, boop. Oh, I'll pay
yeah.
attention to that. Thank you for sharing. Or you can learn them by a
Yeah.
2x4. Bam! Oh, okay. I won't make that mistake again. And I don't like to learn by 2x4s.
No.
I had plenty of those in my life. Or you can learn by a
Yeah.
freight train. And nobody
Yeah.
wants the freight train. But that, not that you die in a freight train, but it's much harder to recover. And I want to learn my lessons easily.
Yeah.
That's my focus now. Learn them just by a little pinprick. It's like boop, like, oh, I'm paying attention. Yeah, what's that about?
Yeah.
Now, this thing that happened with John and I wasn't a pinprick. It didn't go like,
Yeah.
went like that. But it wasn't a 2x4 either. It didn't knock
Yeah.
me on the
But
ground.
it was something.
I mean, it jolted
Yeah.
me big time. And so I thought, okay, I've been asking for pinpricks, and I got not a 2x4, maybe a 1x2. But enough to like
awesome.
really jolt me. And I felt it. And there's this scar right here on my ear. You know what I mean? But that's how I want to learn now. And in order to do that, I have to be actively pursuing this. I can't just wait for that. If I'm just waiting for it, it's going to be, a 1x2 or a
For
2x4.
sure. And when you asked for it, and when you ask for it, the universe is going to give you what you asked for. And there's that thing that I believe in, which is if you don't learn the lesson that you came here to learn, it will keep smacking you in the face somehow, some way, and
get bigger and
until you
bigger
learn
and
it,
bigger.
because you wanted to learn that, you asked to learn that, and so until you do, it will keep. And I love that you asked for a little bit more than a pinprick. That means you're ready. You're not afraid, and you.
Yeah, I didn't know I asked, but okay, we'll go with that. Oh, my sweet thing. I love you so much. I love every piece about you, the authenticity that you bring, your loving heart, your insight, the way you see things, see the world, that you wrap me up in your love, and that you are doing that for so many others right now.
I love you back.
I love you.
Big time.
And thanks for being with us today and listening to some thoughts. If you want to follow up with Kandace, of course, you can do so on her website, or you can do so on her Instagram, Kandace, spelled with a K, Kandace Dato, just like data, but with an O, Dato, and you will learn to love this woman as I have. Until next time, this is a piece of how we craft our meaningful life. Thank you. Namaste.
Listen to the full podcast today and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and more. Crafting a Meaningful Life with Mary Crafts.